Welcome, chill and grab a seat. It's another episode, DFS and Dynasty. You know who the baddest be. We talking about that fantasy football. Oh boy, going in beast mode. Cheat sheets, cheat code. Team QB, different level. Won't believe how we do it. Sleeper League, kick it with your boy Steve. Yeah, we Austin, awesome. I'm a man, John. We don't play, now we dope. Best fantasy football podcast on the globe. Get involved, rock and roll, DFS and Dynasty, homie, here we go.
Welcome to another episode of Sunday Morning Live, DFS and Dynasty. We are here with all of your fantasy / DFS questions, anything you need, we got. And I am not alone. Who likes a Captain America movie by himself? You got to have other superheroes with him. And with me today, we have one in spirit and one in the flesh. Let's start off with good old Steve. How we doing, brother?
I'm good, man. So does this make us the Avengers of fantasy football?
Do the Avengers have a stepbrother that's not allowed to leave the house because he gets into trouble? That's what I'm curious. Because I think that's who we would be. If
anything, that might be the Hulk, but who would stop him?
I'd say we are the Aquaman of fantasy football.
Aquaman sucks. Come on.
I know. He can talk to fish, though. And so that's kind of who we are. And also behind the screens, he'll be jumping in and out with us is Austin. He is the man, and he will be bringing questions and all that stuff. So if you are listening live on YouTube or Google Hangouts, we just want to say thank you. Go ahead and type your questions in there. We will be answering questions as we go through this today. We will be covering news and notes, weather, DFS plays, and basically anything else we can get off task on, because that's just kind of who we are. So
I like it.
Without further ado, let's talk about weather. It's been a great season so far, but we're getting into December. Man, it's December now. That's crazy. And every year, this is where weather will start to impact games. So, Steve, walk me through. We've got 3 games that are going to be slightly affected by this. Talk us through what you got.
Well, we got 4 games, actually, and the first one is Arizona at Green Bay. And, prior to the show here, Austin brought up a good point because, they're talking rain there, possibly snow. And we all know that Arizona is from a nice, warm area, and they play in a dome. So Josh Rosen, John, to your point before show, he played college out there, so he's not going to be used to that. So this really kind of gives Green Bay's defense a big uptick.
Which they didn't need anyway.
Right,
They don't have a great defense, but that Arizona offense is just problematic, to say the best.
Yeah. And then, Chicago at the Giants. There's rain in the forecast there. So, generally when you see rain, and especially if it's heavy, you see the game more happens more on the ground than in the air. And then Indy at Jacksonville, and even Carolina at Tampa Bay, both games down in Florida, they're under thunderstorm warnings. So there could be a possibility of lightning delays in these games, which I don't know about you, but I was targeting Carolina and Tampa Bay heavily. So this is
my favorite game this week.
This could impact DFS play big time.
And that's the thing. Whenever we talk about these weather patterns, I think the Arizona and Green Bay maybe is the largest for Arizona. But, if you look at what Vegas is telling us, Arizona's projected point totals around 15 points. Mm-hmm. So you're not one to play a lot of Arizona players anyway. Perhaps David Johnson, but even there, at his price point, I don't think there's value. But for these other games, it doesn't mean stay away. What it means is if there's somebody close in the same price point and you're kind of tossing back and forth, should I go with this guy or this guy? This is a tiebreaker only. If we look at the point spreads, again, what should be dictating our lineups that we set for DFS, Carolina, Tampa Bay is the highest of the week. 56.5 points, even with the weather. It has adjusted, but it's still the highest. So definitely do not stay away from this game. It might make you want to go a little bit more towards running backs. If you don't have Christian McCaffrey in your lineups this week, just expect not to win. That's all I'm saying. He is not overpriced for what he did last week, and he's playing against Tampa Bay, which is one of the worst defenses in the history of mankind. Not even the NFL. I'm talking all-out worst defenses ever. So,
yeah.
Just
honestly, though, like with that game, I mean, Carolina and Tampa Bay, where I'm playing them the most is in tournaments, and you're looking to outplay your opposition even more so than you would in cash games. So I think I'm going to stick with who I have in those lineups, even with the weather there, and just kind of roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah, just something to keep in mind. Now, let's jump over to news and notes, and holy freaking cow, this week has been amazing for so many different good and bad reasons. And right off the bat, man, we got to talk about Kareem Hunt. He is not suspended. He's placed on the NFL Commissioner's exempt list. He gets released from his team, and I don't really want to spend time talking about what happened and what should happen and all those things. I want to talk about football and the impact that this has not only on, his team, the Chiefs, who are Super Bowl contenders, but also what to do about fantasy. Spencer Ware, he's priced at $5,200. Man, Steve, make some sense here, because is this just a plug and play, or should we stay away from this one?
I don't think you should stay away. However, plug and play remains to be seen. The biggest thing that we have to look at last year is that Spencer Ware had this job locked up going into last season. However, Alex Smith was the guy. Now you implement Patrick Mahomes. Spencer Ware can still fit that offense. He can still fit that scheme. He is a receiving back. He's not a terrible runner. He has shown success in the past. Now with Kareem Hunt out of the picture, there's a lot of questions in that backfield, and Spencer Ware is a guy that's going to be a free agent this year, so he's going to be playing his ass off. So I think for the opportunity that's there, the type of volume that he can see, I think you have to play him regardless. It's unknown, but at 5,200 in that offense, and mind you, you're going to have Sammy Watkins out this week. So I think the offense is going to go more towards a little bit of an uptick in the passing game, and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are probably going to dominate targets with Chris Conley being there. But there's still going to be volume in the backfield, and I think Spencer Ware is going to see a lot of that with a little bit of Damian Williams mixed in.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. They're playing against the Oakland Raiders.
And that, too.
The Oakland Raiders have allowed the most rushing yards. They're giving up almost 150 rushing yards per week, 4.9 yards per attempt. It doesn't matter what the situation is. What I'm going to say is this. If you don't have Spencer Ware in your lineups, you are making a mistake. Again, as we get further into the season, what happens is it's so much more predictable. There's variables early on. This is a perfect game to stack on both sides because there's value plays on the Oakland side. If you look at people like Jalen Richard, who's going to have 10 catches, you look at in tournament plays, if you're looking at somebody like Aitman, who's had over 8 targets 2 weeks in a row, that's going to continue. So This is a fun game. I love Patrick Mahomes, but he's been priced so high. I'm going to have a lineup or two with him this week. You got to be able to take advantage of these situations, especially with Kareem Hunt out. It's going to be more passing. I really do think that that's going to take place. So moving on, A.J. Green, we finally get him back, but it's kind of a silver linings because, man, Jeff Driscoll, are we buying A.J. Green? Are you okay putting him in your lineups this week?
If I don't have him in any lineups, but if you're going to put him in a lineup, A.J. Green's generally safe in cash. However, I would stick to tournaments if you're going to play him. What I do think this does is this is going to draw attention away from Tyler Boyd. Yes, Tyler Boyd had a good week last week, but he's not going to have so much attention on him. So I think he's going to be a little bit more of a safe play than A.J. Green, as crazy as that sounds. But I think that's going to open things up for that offense even more so because, I mean, he's A.J. Green. You have to respect him regardless of who's under center.
And another thing, too, like they're playing Denver, but they're at home. Harris is going to be guarding the slot wide receiver, who's Tyler Boyd in this situation. Tyler Boyd's 7,100, A.J. Green's 8,000. I'm staying away just because I don't like the question mark at quarterback. We don't know how that's going to go with AJ and Jeff Driscoll. I think there's so many more predictable plays that I would prefer. If you look at Mike Evans, he's $100 cheaper than AJ Green going against Carolina. That just seems like such an easier projection. But that's just me. I'm staying away from AJ Green. Randall Cobb, hamstring. He is supposed to return, but man, Randall Cobb, it seems like, he's going to play, he's out. He's going to play, he's out. What does this mean for this entire Green Bay offense?
To me, nothing. All it's going to do is make other options murky. I think your constants in this offense are going to be Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, and then obviously you're going to have Aaron Rodgers. So those are the only three players that I even want to look at in that offense. So, as far as the, Valdez Scantling or whoever else is in that offense, that wide receiver core, Randall Cobb just makes it a little bit murky. So whether he's there or not, I would just stay away from him and focus on the three names that I mentioned in that Green Bay offense.
Yeah, and, even with Devontae Adams, which I think that he is matchup proof, he's going to have Patrick Peterson shadowing him the whole time. And Patrick Peterson has played pretty great this year. So if you're going to pay up for a wide receiver, Devontae Adams, I don't think is going to be it, especially with the weather. I think this is going to be a rushing attack game. But, definitely something to look into. Now, one of our favorite plays the last couple weeks has been DJ Moore. Funchess will be back. He's going to be limited, but he is going to be playing for the Panthers. Does this affect your love for DJ Moore as the resident DJ Moore lover, Steve?
No, I don't think so. I think Devin Funchess he's being fizzled out, in my opinion. I mean, you look at that game against Detroit where he got hurt. He dropped a lot of passes in that game. Curtis Samuel's become a target in the red zone, even though he doesn't see a ton of targets. He gets looks in the red zone, and they run a lot of jet sweeps, and they run a lot of not a lot of reverses, but they involve DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel in that respect. With Christian McCaffrey, you still have Olsen. I mean, with who's there and the way Funchess has been playing all year, I don't think he impacts any of those guys, in my opinion.
All right, we have our first question. Sorry for the delay there, and I'm going to pose this to you. I have my own answer here.
Okay.
Here we go. Pick one of these in standard: DJ, Ware, or Chubb. And then I've got a second part to this question coming up next.
Well,
so David Johnson, Spencer Ware, or Chubb. And again, this is not a DFS question. This is a standard fantasy question. So price points throw out the window. Who's going to score the most fantasy points?
Man.
Ooh, listen to him. His brain's spinning.
I almost want to lean Spencer Ware, and the only reason why I say over Chubb is because the one place that Houston is tough at is against the run. However, if J.J. Watt is not going to play because he is questionable, I would lean Chubb in this direction.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you are looking, man, I hate to say this, I'm going Spencer Ware across all platforms because if you look at the offense that scores the most touchdowns, it's the Chiefs. If you look at the team that gives up the most yards to running back, it's the Oakland Raiders. I think he has a safer ceiling and safer floor and a higher ceiling. So I'm going there. The second follow-up question is this: pick one, also standard, Brandon Cooks or AJ Green.
I'm gonna go Brandon Cooks in this. I mean, the matchup is too juicy, and we just talked about AJ Green a minute ago. Darius Slay. He's the only real threat in that secondary. Glover Quinn, he's the umbrella guy back there. So, I mean, Slay's going to be all over the place. He's a shadow guy. Whoever he's going to shadow remains to be seen. But then you have the likes of Robert Woods, and you have the likes of Josh Reynolds, so on and so forth. So, I mean, all three.
Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, and he's super cheap too, man. Super cheap. So all three of those guys are worth looking at in this matchup against Detroit.
Yep, well said, well said. That Detroit defense, it's gotten a lot better against the run. And so, I think that the Rams, if there's a place that Detroit is vulnerable, it's through the air, and Jared Goff has just been lights out this year, so very efficient. So I want any part of that receiving core out of those three guys.
Right.
All right, moving back to news and notes, and this is a big one because, man, I'm a little biased here. I've got a huge money league where if I win, I'm in. If I lose, I'm out, and I'm trying to make a decision between Gus Edwards and Josh Adams. Both are questionable, and Josh Adams has that Monday night game. So if I want to roll with Josh Adams, I am basically waving the white flag on Gus Edwards. So Gus Edwards is expected to play. He did practice in full on Friday. They move Alex Collins to IR. They bring up Kenneth Dixon. Man, what are you doing with Gus Edwards? And, man, talk us through kind of DFS and fantasy. Help me out, man. I need your help.
So even if Josh Adams plays, they're playing Washington, and Washington has respectable defense. Philadelphia's offense has been struggling a little bit. Josh Adams has been a bright spot, but again, I mean, Washington against the run, they're in the top half of the league, right? So I would kind of veer away from that. Yes, they activated Kenneth Dixon over there in Baltimore, and we always hear great things about him coming into the season, but then he's always hurt, and he eventually lands on IR, right? So Edwards should play. He's expected to play. I mean, he practiced in full on Friday. He's seen a lot of volume. And also, Lamar Jackson is still starting at quarterback. So if Joe Flacco was coming into play, that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit, and I'd maybe be a little bit more hesitant. But if Gus Edwards is playing, and especially against Atlanta, I mean, you have to play him. I mean, his matchup is way better, and the situation for volume is way better than Josh Adams against Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I mean, gosh, if you look at Gus Edwards' matchups, he plays against Cincinnati, has his breakout game, then against Oakland. I mean, he is just, goodness. He did something to deserve some great gifts from the fantasy gods.
Well, he's what 220 or 230 yards over the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's kind of hard to not look at that going into a matchup against one of the worst run defenses in the league.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. They had, just 3 straight matchups against bottom 5 defenses against the run. So Thanks, man. I feel better. I'm going Gus Edwards. It's where I was leaning, but thank you, man. I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, no problem. That's what I'm here for.
We've talked about this game a little bit, but we're just kind of going with this as the news comes in. Sammy Watkins, he is out. And, we've talked about this game. It's got a high point total for the Chiefs. Man, are you just loading up Tyreek Hill and Kelsey wherever you can?
I'm loading up Tyreek Hill, and I'm really trying to load up other options at running back and wide receiver and still paying down on the tight end position. I mean, I like Travis Kelsey just in DFS, man. I hate paying up for the tight end position. I really do. But yeah, I think Tyreek Hill all day long. You could pay on the cheap at wide receiver for Chris Conley. We've talked about Spencer Ware. You have to play him this week. I have Tyreek Hill in a lot of lineups this week.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw you a curveball because I love what you said about how you don't pay up for tight end. I do not either. But this year, tight end has sucked. It's a kick in the shorts every week. And if you go cheap, you are hoping for a 6 or 7 points, maybe get a touchdown. So can you take a just break real quick and walk us through some of your cheap tight end plays this week? Cameron Brate, I'll start us off with mine. He's 4,900 at Carolina, who gives up the most points to the tight end position. Man, please help me understand what if you're not going to pay up for tight end. Who are some guys you are targeting and their price points?
Well, I mean, another guy which is not paying cheap that I've looked at is Eric Ebron with Jack Doyle being on IR. But the other 2 guys that I'm looking at, which is part of our emergency value plays, is Matt LaCosse over in Denver. I mean, he's 4,700 against Cincinnati. They don't have any tight ends. I mean, Hireman just went on the IR. Butt's been on the IR.
He looked good last week too, man.
Yeah, he did. He looked really good, and he caught a touchdown last week too. And they're still relying heavily on Emmanuel Sanders, and Cortland Sutton's kind of there. It doesn't seem like he really gets targeted for some ungodly reason until
he's open,
in the
man.
red zone.
I go back and watch the film.
Oh, he is.
He has separation. I don't understand.
I don't understand it either, but it's probably just a quarterback situation because, I mean, if you noticed, even after DT got traded, that Hireman's targets went up, and that's what I'm going to see with Matt Lacoste just because of where or how Case Keenum plays. And then the other guy I'm looking at is Gerald Everett for 4,800 against Detroit. He's another guy that's seen an uptick in targets with Cooper Kupp going on IR. So, I mean, he caught 2 touchdowns last week, or was it last week against Kansas City? I think it was.
It was a couple weeks ago.
Or a couple weeks ago. So
they had a bye after that, but yeah.
But still, if you look at his target shares since Kupp has gone on IR, he's been getting looked at more and more. Him and even Tyler Higbee. But I think Everett's had the most benefit from it. So those are 2 of the guys that I'm really looking at if you're going to pay down at the tight end position with their matchups.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up Eric Ebron because, he's the number 3 scoring fantasy tight end in the year, but he's not priced that way, especially on FanDuel. He's only 5,600. He's about the 12th price tight end, which just seems crazy to me. If you do want to pay down, he's only 5,600. He's a full $2,200 cheaper than Kelsey, and I think that they're going to have a very similar point total.
It's because they're playing Jacksonville, but the crazy thing is he did well against Jacksonville last time they played him, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand. It's funny because it seems like the fantasy community values defenses at about a 2 to 3 year window. And so Jacksonville was insane last year. They're not this year. Their defense is not what it used to be. People, however, whenever they see that JAX on there, they all pump their brakes and like, oh, I don't know. But that defense it's very vulnerable. So yeah. I love Eric Ebron this week. Chris Herndon he's got a tough matchup. However, he has led his team in targets, receptions, and yards for a few weeks in a row.
That's with McCown. And McCown starting again this week. So
yep. Well said. All right, let's move on to Marlon Mack. Sounds like he's going to play with his concussion. Again, talking about this game, Indianapolis at Jacksonville. He has struggled a little bit. The Jags are pretty good against the run, but man, Marlon Mack, he's been on a couple of the Millionaire Maker lineups. What do we do here?
If you want to play him in tournaments. I personally, I'm staying away from it mainly because of what he did the last time. I think he saw like 12, 13 touches and only had like 20 some yards. So maybe just something about the matchup didn't sit right with the scheme or whatever, but he struggled. And, if he would have put up 70, 80 yards, maybe a couple catches and a touchdown last time they played, I'd be like, okay, I'll play him again this week. But he just did not produce enough in that matchup for me to really want to take a shot at him. But if you're looking for a difference maker in a tournament and you want to take some risk, Marlon Mack could be a guy to play, but I'm staying away from him.
Okay, well said. Xavier Rhodes, game time decision hamstring. Even if he does play, what are you going to do with these New England wide receivers? Man, they're just not throwing the ball a lot. The Patriots seem to be running the ball like crazy. We got Rex Burkhead coming back. What are we doing with this team? Austin, I know, is listening, losing his mind.
Well, on the DraftKings side, you have to play Julian Edelman. If you're looking for a guy that's could be a difference maker, you have to look at Josh Gordon in tournaments. But other than that, stay on the ground. Gronk, if you want to pay up at tight end, I can see that. He did play well last week. And I think the red zone value of him and Josh Gordon can hurt each other. But, more so DraftKings because of PPR, you have to play Julian Edelman.
Yeah. I think you're right there. This is the Julian Edelman show until we see something different. Now, we got a quick question. All right, this one's half-point PPR. We got to come up with 3 plays out of these 5 names, okay? So here we go. Chris Conley, Dion Lewis, Bruce Ellington, Golden Tate, DJ Moore. Right off the bat, DJ Moore has to be the number 1 play here. Would you agree with that one?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Okay, so we need 2 out of these 4.
Man.
Conley, Lewis, Ellington, Tate.
I would probably lean DJ Moore, Conley, and Lewis.
Ooh. Over Ellington, huh? I'm liking Ellington this week. I would go DJ Moore, Ellington, and I'm going Conley. Oh, we both agree on Conley, so that's interesting. All right, another quick question. DJ Moore, TJ Yeldon or Baldwin Boyd. We got to pick one of these half-point PPR. DJ Moore, Yeldon, Baldwin, or Boyd.
I think you have less question marks with DJ Moore, even with the weather in play. I know Doug Baldwin has a history with Russell Wilson, but Tyler Lockett and David Moore have been the guys for him lately, and there's question marks with Baldwin. I know Yeldon's there, but Carlos Hyde is there now too, so Hyde can impact Yeldon.
And a new QB.
Yep.
There's so many question marks there.
Yep. So I think that the only question mark with DJ Moore is the weather, but I would still play him just because of his big playability and other capabilities that he has outside of being a wide receiver.
He's the NFL leader right now in yards per route run. One of my favorite stats to look at. I think you just got to stay with it, especially with this game against that terrible secondary.
Oh,
all right.
He said, the gentleman who asked that question said he needs 2 on the second, so we need to add somebody to DJ Moore. If it were me, I would probably go. Oh man, I'd probably go DJ
Kaiser
Moore.
Sose. I'm starting Kaiser Sose. Sorry, you didn't get the '90s joke reference.
I didn't even hear what you said.
Dang, it's The Usual Suspects. It's a great movie. All right, sorry. Back to the real fantasy question.
Oh man. But anyways, the second one. Who would you put with DJ Moore?
I am not. Give me the names again. They've been deleted from my script.
Or DJ Moore, TJ Yeldon, Doug Baldwin, Tyler Boyd.
I guess I'd go Tyler Boyd. Man, I hate that. I don't like it. I'd go to waivers. That's what I would do. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to take a break and let's talk about these games to target. We're pretty lucky in the fact that Vegas kind of gives us the blueprint each and every week because that's where the money is at on which games, implied point totals, projected point totals, all this stuff. And so, Steve, I want you just to pick a game or two that you think we have to target. We've already talked about quite a few. But go ahead. Let's see what you got.
I think you have to look at the Rams at the Lions. Mainly because that matchup against Detroit, we already talked about all 3 wide receivers, but you still have Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. Gurley's priced at $9,800, Goff's $8,400, but the matchup is solid, and you have to play them. And I think they're safe plays if you're playing cash lineups. Kenny Golladay is going to see a lot of targets. What he does with them remains to be seen. We know that secondary.
He's averaging 12 targets a game since they've traded away Golden Boy.
Yeah, and Marvin Jones on IR, right? So, Ellington, Riddick, he's going to get mid. Those guys are all mixed in, but Galladay is going to be the primary target. There's no tight end there, so he's going to see like Calvin Johnson type targets. It just remains to be seen what he does with them. You know what I mean? I know the Rams are weak in the secondary, but Stafford and that offense have not been playing well.
I like it. We talked about this Panthers and Bucks games, but holy cow, I don't think we could talk about it enough. Vegas is just screaming at us, play this game. 2 of the worst secondaries in the NFL as far as yards given up. Neither team has a good pass rush. Man, this game just screams huge points. The weather, I think, is the only thing that can stop it. Walk me through just a couple of your favorite price points and plays for both teams.
So, McCaffrey, he's at 8,800, but you have to play him. Absolutely.
You have to. Especially, and I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and the Kareem Hunt news, who that affects the most this week, are these top running backs this week on this slate. And so, the question was, which top running backs do you go with? Well, the Kareem Hunt news kind of helped us out. You have to go with 2 of the top running backs. You're looking at Gurley, you're looking at McCaffrey. I got those 2 guys in a lot of lineups. Saquon, of course, the volume. So you have to get 2 out of those guys. I've got a couple lineups where I have all 3 of them and just paid down for receiver and tight end and everything else. But McCaffrey is a lock this week. Please get him in your lineups.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then on the Tampa Bay side, you have to look at Cameron Brate at 4,900. Even Mike Evans at 7,900. I mean, the volume is there. He's seeing a lot of targets. And another guy that a lot of people really aren't paying too much attention to is Adam Humphries. I mean, even in half point, PPR. He's put up over 10 points the last 2 weeks, and he's involved in either quarterback looks at him. So he's another guy that if you want to pay down a wide receiver, it's kind of like a what the hell when you're building your lineup and not many people are going to look at him to play him. Adam Humphries is a guy to look at.
All right. We've got to quit. I do like Adam Humphries. He does scare me, but his target share with Winston it's undeniable. And all they do is throw.
Yep.
So we got a quick question. It says, I need help, 3 exclamation points. That means we're fighting to get into the playoffs. I can already feel it with this roster. So I've got a set of 3 questions, okay? Number 1, this is a full PPR. We need 1 wide receiver out of Mike Evans, A.J. Green, and Galladay. I know who I'm going.
I'd go Mike Evans.
Mike Evans, I agree. We have a consensus there. Now, we need 1 running back. Again, full PPR. Mixon, David Johnson, or Spencer Ware. Man, we're getting a lot of these questions. Mixon, Johnson, or Ware?
I don't mind Mixon's matchup, but I have to go Ware just because of that offense
Ware as well.
and the matchup.
Now, here's where it gets tricky. We need 1 flex out of the remaining 4. So pick one of these. Again, full port PPR. A.J. Green, Kenny Galladay, Joe Mixon, or David Johnson. We got to have one of those. A.J. Green, Galladay, Mixon, Johnson.
I don't think you could go wrong with either Galladay or Mixon simply because the matchups are there and the volume's going to be there. And I think there's less risk with those guys as opposed to A.J. Green and David Johnson.
I love it. I'm going Ware and Mixon. I want those touches. So hopefully that helps you out. And real quick question, Wilson or Cousins straight up this week? This is a good one. I love whenever I'm picking my quarterbacks, what I do is I want volume. The lineup or the matchup for Russell Wilson is amazing against San Francisco, but Vegas is telling us
because they're playing San Francisco.
He doesn't throw the ball. Well, our secondary sucks. Our secondary sucks, okay? But Seattle, they run the ball more than any other team in the NFL. So if you're wanting a safe floor, I'm going Wilson. But if I'm going for, that ceiling, who's going to have the bigger game, I'm going Kirk Cousins. That dude is throwing the ball like crazy. He's on pace to lead the NFL in completions. So
he's
I'm
throwing
going
a lot,
volume
and
Cousins.
Diggs is playing, but I don't know. I'm always big on Russell Wilson in the second half of the season. There's just something about that team and him second half of the season. They just go nuts. But he is your safest play, and I think that's why I lean towards him. Minnesota's going to be on the road in New England. And New England, you never know with them. They target the strongest part of your offense on their defensive side of the ball. And it's just a matter of whether they can put it together that week or not.
Yeah, I'm going Cousins here. I'm sticking strong. Not because the 49ers are any good. They're not.
I think that has something
just
to do
because
with it.
I think, man, this game could get ugly quick, and I could really see Russell Wilson having 21 pass attempts, and that's it. So, yeah, there's that one. I want to talk about this Chargers-Steelers game. I want to move on. This is out of the main slate. This is a Sunday night game, and probably my favorite game of the week as far as NFL goes. Man, 51.5 point projected point total. Gosh, Melvin Gordon is out. What are you doing here? Because I'm going to have a lot of Sunday night single game lineups set up. I've got a couple already projected. But what do you do? What are you looking at in this game?
The first thing I look at here is the Chargers. There's always an issue with traveling, and the Chargers have been a team that has traveled to the East Coast well this year. They've performed, and that's mainly been on the back of the running game. With Melvin Gordon out, you ultimately return to look at Austin Eckler at 5,400. He's a great receiving back. He's not the strongest runner out there. So I really don't know how this is going to impact that offense. I think it's going to be adjusted a little bit. I think Keenan Allen's a big play here. And if they do get 20 yards and in, this is where Mike Williams shines. So I think it mainly resides on Phillip Rivers and what they're going to do with the passing game, mixing in Eckler and Justin Jackson. Even he's a big wild card in that backfield. So, if anything, I'm looking at the receiving side of the ball for the Chargers.
All right, I like it. So let's go on to Stack of the Week. Who is the team and or game that if you had to just play one lineup, which team are you just heavily relying on the most?
Because I have them both stacked up. It's just because of both matchups are good, but God, I would have to say Kansas City, man. I mean, there's too much firepower in that offense, and same thing with the Panthers against Tampa Bay. But even with Hunt being out, I just think against Oakland, you can't go wrong there.
They have a 35-point projected total according to Vegas, and that's impressive.
Yep.
And I'll say this, the MVP race is real, and I think it's down to 2, possibly 3 guys, Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes. And with this Kareem Hunt news, and after, Drew Brees had his worst game of the year on Thursday Night Football, this is the opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to start running away with that MVP race, and he can even say, look, we lost our Pro Bowl All-Pro running back in the middle of the season. Look what I can do. Mm-hmm. So I am all in on this script. I think Kansas City is going off. I understand he's crazy expensive, but this is why you listen. We're here to help you. The other stack I'm all in on, man, Cam made me a lot of money last week. I am staying with this Panthers matchup against that terrible Bucs defense. I love targeting terrible defenses. And, man, with all those little passes to Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore, Cam Newton's a terrible quarterback as far as passing accuracy goes, but they have found a way for him to throw the ball 5 to 10 yards only and allow these little athletes to go take it to the house. So I love those two matchups.
And that's why Funchess is fizzling out, because they have their red zone target in Greg Olsen.
Yep. All right, let's go to my favorite part of the week, the emergency value plays, brought to you by I don't know. I didn't think that one through. All right.
Somebody.
Somebody. That's right. Kit Kat. If you need a break, here we go.
Right on.
All right. So this is, you get terrible news. Another video comes out, God forbid, and a player's kicked off a team. These are the guys you're going to sub in last minute without thinking for your DFS lineup. So walk us through a player or two at each position that you are just like, hey, if shit hits the fan, this is who you need to go with.
So at quarterback, nothing really jumps out at me, but I mean, Mariota against the Jets, it depends on what Titans offense shows up that week, and they have a good matchup with the Jets, even though Jamal Adams has been a freaking monster for the Jets in their secondary. But Mariota's at $7,000, and then I don't really care too much for Derek Carr, but he's $6,600 against Kansas City. But Chase Daniel is an option against the Giants, because Trubisky, this actually just came across, he is doubtful. At first, he was probably going to be active and just not start, but he is doubtful, so it is Chase Daniel's offense to run this week. So those are just a couple guys there. And then at running back, we've already talked about Spencer Ware a lot. He's super cheap. He's $5,200. He's not even an emergency value play. You should be playing him.
Yeah.
But Royce Freeman at Cincinnati for $5,000, when he's back and healthy, he gets enough volume, and if he sneaks a touchdown in there, he can be a difference maker for you, and you could pay down at $5,000 for him. So he could be a sneaky play with a hell of a matchup. Wide receivers, we already talked about Josh Reynolds. You should be playing him. $5,800. Detroit's defense sucks. Demaryius Thomas could be a solid play. He's $5,300 against Cleveland, and Kiki Cootie's a game time decision. Cootie he was active last week, but I think he actually left that game at one point in time because he re-aggravated his hamstring.
Another guy I want to throw in there real quick is my boy Dante Pettis.
Yeah,
they have announced Garcon and Goodwin are out. Boy balled out last week. Yeah, he's got Seattle, but still, he is going to be the primary receiver in a very, very pass-happy offense.
Yeah, I mean, outside of George Kittle, he's probably going to be the biggest target.
$5,300, pretty cheap.
Love me some Matt Breida this week, though.
Yeah.
And then at the
every week.
Yeah, right, exactly. Especially because he's always super cheap. So at the tight end spot, Matt Lacoste that we talked about. We already talked about these two guys a little bit earlier. I mean, Lacoste and then Gerald Everett, they're $4,700 and $4,800. They have good matchups, and they have been seeing some volume. So those are some guys you could plug in an emergency.
Love it. Man, this is awesome. I just want to say, if you don't know, now you know. Steve is killing it. If you have been following along on Twitter, he has been a top 2 ranker on Fantasy Pros against the top 300 experts in fantasy multiple times this season. He is killing it all year. So Steve is killing it. I'm going to ask him to give his closing remarks in a second before we jump off here. But I just want to say this. Do not gamble on DFS. There's no need to. There's no need to gamble, and we are here to help you guys out. Stay with solid, predictable plays and cash out. Balance your budget between 50-50s and head-to-heads and allow that to build your bankroll on a weekly basis while also taking a couple shots in tournaments. And if you do that, not only will you be making money every week, but you can also still have that huge home run play and get your adrenaline pumping and all those things. But even if you miss out on those, which are very hard to hit on, you're still making money each week. And we are here to help you. If you have not signed up for lineups with us over at EatSleepFantasy.com, you need to do that. It is only $25 for the rest of the season, and we're going all the way up to the Super Bowl. That is 21 weeks, so we still have 8 weeks. Or you can just do $5 a week, but if you sign up right now for the whole rest of season, which is just $25, you also get our bronze membership package over at Eat Sleep Fantasy, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, draft kits, all kinds of different stuff that will be coming your way. So head over to EatSleepFantasy.com and sign up. And Steve, talk to us, man. What do we got to know before we jump off?
So first off, I just want to say good luck to everybody. But going back to John's point of not gambling on anything, if you're going to play 50-50 lineups, I would say Carolina and Kansas City are your safest stacks. And then just look at matchups, look at production, look at volume, take weather into account. I mean, these are all things that we think about every day, and we talk a lot through the week amongst each other about who we're going to play and what we're looking at. So, those are always things you really need to think about. Just analyze the situation. Don't overthink it, and go where the plays are safe. And that's how you're going to make money. And the guys that you are on the fence about, those are the ones that you want to play in tournaments if you're going to get into tournament play, because those guys will make or break your team. But if it breaks your team, you're still making money on the 50-50 side, right? So you just got to be smart about it.
Love it. Love it. And that is your boy, Steve. You can find him on Twitter at SSPAC21, at SSPAC21. And want to say shout out to our producer, Austin, behind the scenes, creating the notes, handling everything. Austin is the man. You can follow him on Twitter at AUSTN37. And myself, I'm just an asshole, so don't even worry about me. But thanks for listening this week. Yeah, there's no need to even mention my stuff. So, all right, guys, have a good week. If you have any questions, we will be updating our lineups on the site up to kickoff. So as news continues to trickle in, we got you. Till next week, thanks, guys, and let's make some money. Y'all have a good one.
Peace.